Hello YouTube and welcome back to the Loose Transistor channel. I'm your host Lucas, and today I have a special treat for you guys in the form of a brand new build and review series that I'm just starting up. Wait a minute, you may say. What happened to the last one? You were just building a 3-inch. What happened? Well, I'm gonna have to put a little pause on that. The 3-inch is right here in this box, and it is now in pieces, even though it had been built before. And just like I told you guys in that update video where I was having problems with two motors not spinning up, that motor persisted even after I got that replacement ESC from Beaver FPV that they shipped to me like the next day. It still didn't work. So I'm starting to suspect that maybe it's the flight controller or something like that. So what is happening basically is I'm shipping this back to Beaver. They're going to take a look at it and see what needs to be replaced, and then they're going to send me back the parts that I need, and we'll get the build finished and we'll go from there. So sorry to do that to you guys, but there's nothing I can do. I mean, I can't fly the thing, so I can't show you guys the rest of the video. So I'm going to be starting a new build and review series. This one is on a 5-inch quad, so I don't predict any problems here, even though we're going to be using some new parts that are pretty new to the market. So let's talk about the frame first. What I have here in multiple pieces, and I'm going to show you guys the pieces in a second here, is the FPV Syndicate SHREDDER. Now this is a brand new frame. It's not even released yet. These are just the prototypes, and I have to say, for a prototype, this is really nice. Like, check out the edging on that carbon fiber. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but here, let's see. Oh, come on. But it is all beveled. The whole thing is beveled. It's so nice. Like, there's nothing to catch your finger on. It's amazing. So FPV Syndicate SHREDDER, as I was telling you guys, this is a 5-inch quad, regular X format. They have a stretch X as well, and it's just a really nice looking quad. I have posted some pictures about it, and I've talked about it on the FPV chat, but this time we're going to dive deep, we're going to do a build and really check out and see if this FPV Syndicate SHREDDER stacks up to the task. So let me just change the camera angle here so you guys can see all the parts and everything that I'm going to be using. We'll talk about it in detail, and we'll go from there. Alright, so as I promised, let's start with the frame. So what I have here are all the parts and pieces that are going to make up the FPV Syndicate SHREDDER, and I'll put up a picture of it right now so you guys can take a look and see how sick this thing looks when it's done. But basically it is, everything is replaceable. Like, you can replace the arms, and they are in pairs, but I actually kind of imagine that gives it a bit more strength and allows it to reduce the weight in terms of how many pieces you need on the quad. So basically how it goes together is something like this, and then there's a top plate here where your FC goes in, holds everything in place, and check this out, guys. It has a sort of like a protection for your for all your equipment built in without having to have a top plate or any of the ugly stuff. And I think that this is probably a better profile for a quad too in terms of aerodynamics, though I've heard that aerodynamics don't matter at all on quads, so whatever, take it as you may. I don't know, I really like this. I think that your equipment is going to be well protected, and from what I've seen, the way that the HS1177 sits in here, it should be very well protected against impacts. So this quad here is really designed with racing in mind. This is not a strict racer. You can definitely freestyle with the thing. You can get mounts for your camera that fit in between the standoffs. But it is just a really nice frame. It's neat, it's unique. I haven't really seen much like this out there. So let's see how much it weighs. Yeah, just before we go any further here, let's see how much just the carbon and all the bits and bobs that it came with weigh. Zero that thing. Grams. Alright, so let's just put all the carbon here before we go any further. I want to find out how much this weighs because I am curious. Put all this stuff on here. Okay, so just the carbon here, we're sitting at, I guess I should turn this to you guys so you guys can see as well. So there we go. So we're sitting at 81 grams. There was a wire that was touching there and pushing it up. So 81 grams is varying a little bit. And I have a little baggie here with all of the hardware. There's even some really nice machined aluminum pieces that are gonna hold all that stuff together and clamp it all down. Like, it's really nice. There's a few more over here, some locking nuts that are machined aluminum. So man, this is a really well thought out frame. The guy went above and beyond to develop something a little bit unique and to tick the boxes that he was looking to tick, but I think that's gonna tick a lot of boxes for a lot of you guys out there as well. So yeah, let's see how much that weighs with all this stuff together. So 106 grams we're looking at for just a frame, which is not terrible, and I'm sure we're going to come out with a pretty decently lightweight build with the components that we have here. The only thing that I have that's really heavy is the motors, but we'll get to that. So let's take a look here at the frame. So as I was saying, this one here has replaceable arms, but they are in doubles like this. So you get 2 and 2. And I had another frame like that, which was the Detroit Multi-Rotor, one of the first prototypes that I built from them. And it also had the arms like this, and I actually kind of like them. I never broke an arm on that, and I smacked that thing against some pretty heavy-duty light poles. Never broke an arm, never broke anything. I frayed it a little bit, but I would imagine these would be pretty tough as well. Just gonna do my standard little twist test. These are nice and stiff. There's no give to the carbon fiber at all, so it looks like it's a good quality and a super good quality cut. I'm gonna try to get some light here, so see if I can show you guys. I don't know. It's gonna be hard to see, but the whole thing is beveled all the way around, nicely contoured on the arms. So the arms are beveled, which is super nice, and also the canopy, or I'm gonna call this the canopy. I'm not sure what you guys want to call this. The roll cage. Let's call it the roll cage. So the roll cage here, it's nicely beveled all the way around too, including the inner cuts. Man, this is amazing. I have not seen very many quads that bother to go to this level of detail with the carbon fiber cut. And there's like literally nothing to get your finger on. It's amazing. So really good quality. And these are just the prototype runs. From what I have, I've talked to the guy who's making these. His name is Alexander Jermenko. He's a super stand-up guy, awesome to deal with, and a great guy all around. But I was talking to him, and I asked him whether or not the final versions of the quad were going to come with the same treatment, and he said, yep, absolutely. So look out for FPV Syndicate SHREDDER when it does come out, because this is going to be a pretty serious piece of kit. Especially if they're going to go the extra mile to like make sure that the carbon's super nice like this. Like I can just go and put some super glue here to make sure that it doesn't delaminate, and we're good. Another feature that I should talk to you guys about on the arms is these little holes right here. There is a reason for these holes. I mean, other than the fact that they kind of look pretty cool and you could probably hang your quad from that if you wanted to. The real purpose of why they're there is so you can run your wires through them like this and have your motors and have your wires going under the quad so that you can have your ESCs mounted underneath, which for a lot of guys who race is freaking great, because what most kills ESCs, at least for the individual ESCs on this style, is when your prop comes swinging around and you break it or you bend it and it just like goes right on top of your ESC, breaks a component or something like that. That's what kills ESCs all the time. So moving the wires to the bottom here does make sense, because it will allow you to protect your ESCs, and you'll see that you won't burn ESCs nearly as much, or won't break them nearly as much. So yeah, this is sort of how it looks like from the bottom. Right here, the wires just come out of that hole, and then you just wire it all up, and it's good to go. I have heard some people concerned about you maybe landing on dirt and that like shearing your wires, but from what I heard of Alexander and all the other guys who are testing the quad, nobody has sheared any cables yet doing this style of mounting. And this is the style of mounting that we're gonna do. So that was the arm feature that I wanted to cover with you guys, and it's a super cool little feature. Then we have here, so let's see here, this is a bottom plate. And oh yeah, the bottom plate is also already beveled. So the battery straps, where the battery is going to go through, boom, that stuff is beveled, guys. I don't have to take my diamond file and mess around with it. Like, that's done. Super cool. The edges around are not, but you're really not going to touch this part of the quad very often. And the only thing that is going to touch anything important is the battery strap slots, and these have been machined out. This is amazing. So super cool. Another plus point for the FPV Syndicate SHREDDER for sure. This is shaping up to be a really nice frame. So we got the bottom plate, and basically the two arms go on something like this, I believe. Boom, boom. Cool. And there's a lot of holes cut out to lighten that up. I wonder how stiff this will all be when it's all built together and how resilient it will be, but from what I've heard, they've been holding up pretty well on crashes. And then we have this super cool little plate here, which is a bit thicker. I believe this is 3mm. Yep, 3mm, yep. So this 3mm piece of carbon right here is going to house your electronics, and it's going to give it some stiffness, and it has the FPV Syndicate logo embezzled on it, which is pretty damn cool. And it's going to hold your arms together, so it's going to sandwich them right there in the middle. You're going to run bolts through it and stack your flight controller and all that good stuff on top of here, and this will hold the arms together. And I've had quads that had this style of mounting before. I never had any problems with it. They can be very, very, very strong as long as you use the appropriate thickness of carbon, and I believe that this is going to be well thick enough. Alright, so moving on, we got that. And then you basically have your two two roll cage pieces here, which get held down by some super cool machine aluminum doodads, and I think I have it backwards here. I must have it backwards. Yep, I did have it backwards. Sort of. Okay. So I'm just press fitting these on here so you guys can take a look and see what the frame is going to somewhat look like when it's done. Okay, so something like that. Boom, boom, boom. Looks pretty cool. So it also comes with this little piece right here, and I believe it uses the two little square pieces of aluminum as a base to hold it together. And this is where you can mount your antenna. You don't necessarily have to use this, but I find this to be a pretty neat little device, and especially if I end up using the Foxeer TM25, that gives me a very perfect little spot to just pop this in and pop a dipole out of it and not have to worry about it at all. I might also end up using the VTX03, I'm not sure yet. We're going to talk about that pretty soon when I get to the electronic bits and bobs. So yeah, little plate for the antenna, and I believe this is for, yep, this is sort of like the roof, and it provides you two other holes for mounting stuff, I believe. Some zip tie areas, and you can put your GoPro or your HD cam over here. You can add a little wedge if you needed to add a little bit more angle, and your camera gets nicely protected in there inside of this whole roll cage, which is super, super nice. So overall, just on this preliminary look at the FPV Syndicate Shredder, I'm super impressed. Extremely good quality carbon, very well cut. Everything seems to fit together really, really nicely, and overall, a good looking frame. Like, it is sexy, guys. This is a really, really sexy frame. And I'm excited to see how this whole roll cage stacks up against our standard standoff and top plate dealio that we've been doing for a really long time. So yeah, excited to get this started. Definitely, definitely. So let's take a look at what other parts we're going to be using for this build. So I'm just going to move the frame away here because we already talked about it. We'll be going into more detail on it as we build it and as I discover more and more about what the quad has in terms of features. So let's start with the motors. Why not? So I picked up a bunch of these Wraith BR22306 2400. Now these are not like super expensive motors or anything like that. These are pretty run-of-the-mill. They were actually rather cheap, but I've heard really good things about the Wraith motors, and I'm not one to spend money just to spend money or anything like that. I am looking for quality, and I am looking to save a few dollars if I can. So if this here can give me the performance that I'm looking for at a fraction of the cost of a DYS or a T-motor or anything like that, yeah, I'm gonna jump on it. And this is going to be my test bed. We're going to check it out. If this all fails and these motors turn out to be crap, I'm going to be replacing the motors on this build with the trusty DYS 2205-2550, which I've used on a few of my racer builds, which is this guy right here. Little Goldie guy with the nice little solder pad so that you can just swap wires at will. These are super nice, and I've used these in race quads before, but I already know the performance of these guys. I'm not learning anything here. I know I can use these. I want to check these out and see how that goes. I have a few extras in case these burn out or something like that. But overall, just looking at these motors, they seem to be pretty decent quality. There's some variance in air gap between them, a little small amount of variance in the air gap, but it's not terrible. I've been told it's a decently low air gap. It does use these shims and the little C-clips to hold it all together, which is not the greatest. But these motors, I'm not expecting to get a huge amount of durability out of them. I'm expecting to get maybe like one season out of them or something like that, or maybe a few races before they crap out on me and I have to replace them. But at the cost, we'll see if it works out to be better than investing on some high quality motors that supposedly last longer. I've used the T2 motors quite a bit, and I have mixed feelings on those. I mean, I love the performance of the T2 2206-2600. They're amazing. However, I find that they can tend to be fragile, and I've had problems where wires have broken off or other things have broken on very simple crashes. So I don't know. I mean, is it really worth the money? Maybe. I don't know. Other people might have better luck than I do with the T2s. But the DYS 2205-2550 is actually what I would consider like a decent price point and a really good quality motor. I literally have had zero problems with the DYS motors, at least that run. So here we have it, guys. I got 4 of these guys. They're fairly big. They remind me a lot of the red butts, the same size, 2306. They seem to be the new hotness in terms of size. So we'll be checking these out on the FPV Syndicate Shredder. Of course, we will be powering these guys with a set of ESCs, and what I have here are some pretty neat ESCs. Not a lot of people are using these in builds right now, I don't think. These are the Airbot Wraith 32-bit BL Heli S ESCs. So these are the latest hotness in ESCs. Now, are we talking about like super increase in performance or anything like that? No, not so fast. That's not quite what it is. So the 32-bit BL Heli ESC basically is a step up in hardware in terms of what the current ESCs can do. So they're stepping up in terms of like processing power. They can do more, and they're basically future-proofing these ESCs so they can add more features in the future without having to, because we basically have tapped out the BL Heli S architecture in terms of what it can do. Like, we are pushing those guys pretty much to the limit. This is going to give us some headroom, and it's going to give us some ability to do different things that you can't do right now. So some of the neat features that you're going to see coming soon on these 32-bit BL Helis are, for example, you can limit the current or limit the voltage on your ESC so that it doesn't burn out. You can get telemetry on each individual ESC sent to your OSD or sent to your flight controller. You improve bidirectional response, or for example, you know how people have always talked about doing the turtle mode, where you have your quad is upside down and then you flip a switch, and that basically like allows you to flip the quad over. And like, you can do that today, but it requires you to set your ESCs to bidirectional and then doing some trickery with the throttle range, so that at one switch position you get the full throttle range, and then the other switch position you get only half, and it allows you to flip over. However, you're losing resolution. So it is a pretty big trade-off in my opinion. I like to have throttle resolution. So I'm excited for the prospect of being able to do that on the 32-bit BL Heli, because what you can do is when you flip a switch, you can actually tell the ESC to reverse direction and then reverse back without having to mess with the ESC or anything like that. So there's going to be a lot of new features coming out for these ESCs that you guys are going to start seeing on builds, and it's going to open up a lot of possibilities, and some of them will be performance gains as well. Mostly, I think what they talk about is a smoother throttle range without as many bumps on different values. This particular model here comes with an RGBA LED that you can change the colors on, and what I've heard, it's pretty damn bright. There are no wires, it's a completely naked ESC, and it's a pretty simple wiring. Like, you have your battery plus, battery minus, and then you have your signal and ground, and then just 3 leads for the motors. But it looks really, really well built, and you can even see the current sensor right there, and the LED right over there. So it seems like it's a really, really nicely built ESC. So I'm curious to see how this is all going to work out, and to try some of these new features as they come out. Other than these BL Heli ESCs, I have another hype piece of kit right here, which is the Omnibus F7. So this is now the F7 family of chips, which allows even more processing power and headroom, and even more UARTs, which is going to allow you to do things like smart audio and all sorts of other features that you can integrate with this board, because it has so many pins that you can use. One of the other neat features of this particular model here, which is the Airbot Omnibus F7, is that it actually has 2 gyros. So there's 2 gyros on the board right here, one there and one there. Now, one gyro is your standard MPU 6000 that we've been using for a while now because it's so noise tolerant. And the other one is the, I forget here, what is it? Oh man, it's the IC, crap. IC268G. So it's essentially the same type of family of gyro that the race flight guys are using. So this gyro right there can do 32 kilohertz. What does that mean? That this whole board can actually do 32 kilohertz. So you could, in theory, run race flight on this board, or you could run Betaflight 32-bit. However, Betaflight 32-bit is unfinished at the moment, so we're not. I'm probably not gonna try the 32-bit because I don't want my machine to go and kill somebody. But in the near future, when they start actually investing some more time into the F7 architecture, into the 32-bit ecosystem, then I'm sure it's going to unlock some really neat possibilities for Betaflight. I've always had really good luck with anything Airbot, so I'm sure that this Omnibus is not going to be any different. I just have to figure out a little bit of the wiring, because it's very different from the F3s and the F4s that I'm more used to. But overall, it has pretty much the same set of features as you've come to expect from the Omnibus, except this one does not come with a current sensor. No current sensor. But it still has the OSD, all the stuff you need for the OSD here, directly built into Betaflight. It has an SD card, so you can have your flight logs directly onto an SD card. It has a crap ton of pins and ins and outs, and there's motor pins and all sorts of cool stuff that we're going to detail when we actually go and build it. But that's just so you guys know, Omnibus F7 is going to be going on with this super awesome Wraith 32-bit BL Heli ESCs for a super awesome hype train right here. I'm going to be using the Airbot. This is actually from an F3. It's a PDB, but it's a dumb PDB. It doesn't have anything other than just the traces, but I really like building with these because you can do some really slim builds, so we'll be using these as well. Other than that, I am torn between using the VTX03 or the Foxeer TM25 for the video. I haven't entirely decided yet, and that's actually going to depend more so on how much I can pull in terms of 5 volts from this board. Because since I'm not using a regulated PDB, maybe if I find a regulated one I'll use it, but if I don't, since I'm not using a regulated PDB, I don't really want to use a Pololu for like the camera and then do all this other stuff. Like I just want to have simple wiring. So if I can't find enough juice to run the 5 volts that this guy needs and another 5 volts for the camera here, then I might just use the TM25 because it does have the DCS out for the camera. So we'll drop down the voltage and everything, and that's awesome. This is also probably going to be a TVS build. I just need to figure out how I'm going to get the TVSs installed on these ESCs, and it's probably going to be on the back right here because you can literally solder them both ways because the pads go all the way around, which is kind of neat. So this will be a TVS build as well. We will be using diodes and we will be using capacitors because both are better for your builds. Seriously, use both of them. I like knowing that my cameras and all my sensitive equipment is protected from transients, and using the capacitors on your builds will help your video and will help your gyro run cleaner for sure. And of course, we're going to be using our trusty Foxeer HS1177. I've used this literally every build you guys have seen so far. I just love this camera. Seriously, it's just the best for what I do, for what I like to do, and I've grown so used to it that I just learned to see the world through the HS1177 eyes, and that's good enough for me. And finally, I'm going to be using these cool little RTFQ LEDs. These things are bright as hell. I've used them on one of my last builds here, and I'll plug it in to show you guys. So I'm just going to plug this guy in here, show you guys the awesome brightness. So yeah, check that out. So they're pretty freaking bright. So I'm going to be using those as well, because I've been told I'm a dick for not using LEDs in races, so I'm using LEDs now. And we'll also have the LEDs from the 32-bit ESCs on the bottom of the arms. Alright guys, so that pretty much covers it on our first part of our build and review series on the FPV Syndicate SHREDDER. So again, I apologize for not having the 3-inch and continuing that with you guys right now, but I will go back to it as soon as I have the parts and as soon as everything is working, I promise. So we will be revisiting the 3-inch soon enough, but unfortunately I have to keep things moving, and I couldn't resist building this FPV Syndicate 5-inch, man. This is cool. This carbon fiber and everything just got me so excited. I also just been waiting for an excuse to use this Omnibus F7 and these Wraith 32 bits and these friggin' motors right here. So lots of new stuff for me to try out. I'm very, very curious, and I'll let you guys know how everything works out as we go. So thanks again for watching, guys. I hope you really enjoyed, and I hope you learned something here today. I hope to see you guys next time, so make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll catch you next time.